Hey everybody, it's Innovision, and there's been a lot of interest in the community about how to install the real SteamOS on your BC250 hardware in order to transform it into a real Steam machine. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to install SteamOS on your BC250 as well as how to dual boot it. That way you can try SteamOS out without removing your existing system and see if you actually like it. Stick around because you don't want to miss any of it. In terms of setting up the dual boot on your BC250, I'll be taking advantage of some tools that I've already been developing for the community that allow us to dual boot on our handheld gaming PCs like the Legion Go and the ROG Ally. So we have a set of tools that lets you add SteamOS to your existing installation, as well as repair your SteamOS installation in a dual boot setup. And if you don't plan on dual booting, once you get your SteamOS install media put together and you're able to boot off of it, I'll show you later in the video which options to select in order to install it. And one thing I want you to keep in mind is if for whatever reason SteamOS doesn't boot after you finish the installation, whether it's a single boot or a dual boot setup, don't panic. Sometimes you can be in a situation where you see a black screen, and that usually means that the bootloader got corrupted. You'll either use my custom repair tool or the existing repair tool in SteamOS in order to fix your setup. In the description of the video, I'll also be including the SteamOS install media that I used. All right, let's get started. All right, so we're in our BC250 BIOS and we're getting ready to boot off of the SteamOS install media. So we're gonna go under boot. And at the moment, I already have CachyOS installed. I'm gonna show you how to dual boot CachyOS along with SteamOS. Or if you just wanna wipe whatever OS you have installed, I'll show you how to do that as well. I'm going to bump this boot option all the way to the top. This is my USB install media for SteamOS. My USB install media for SteamOS is the first boot option. And I'm gonna hit F10 to save my changes, hit enter. For those of you who are just joining us, we have a Discord that's free for all of our subscribers. We even now have membership tiers that include access to private chats. Don't miss out. Be sure to join the deeper discussions that we have on Discord. All right, so at this point, we're in our SteamOS recovery environment. And if you want to wipe whatever OS you already have installed, all you must do is double click on this option, wipe device and install SteamOS. This will wipe everything that's on your disk and reinstall the SteamOS operating system. And what it will show you is basically a dialog just asking you to confirm, do you want to proceed? In our case, I would like to use my Innovision Games community-based custom installer. This is a tool we developed in the community to be able to dual boot SteamOS alongside any other operating system. Originally it was intended for Windows for gaming handhelds, but since then it's been extended for pretty much any device. If you want to dual boot, you're going to want to go into Firefox and go to the GitHub page. In my case, I already installed Firefox because I've been using it for other tutorials. When you click Firefox for the first time, it's going to pop up the Discover Store, which the Discover Store is your app store under SteamOS. This is where Firefox will get installed from. It's unusually slow because it's running off your flash storage media. Just be patient with it. It's going to take anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes depending on your internet connection, your flash storage media, etc. But once it's done, Firefox will be installed. So this gives you the option to try out SteamOS without having to wipe your entire operating system. And you're going to head over to our GitHub repository and look for SteamOS custom install. I'll have a link to this in the description of our video. But you're going to come over here to this code button and copy the URL to the clipboard. You're going to go ahead and open a terminal or a console, and you're going to type in cd just to make sure you're in the home directory. And then you're going to type in git clone and then paste that URL. And we should see here now we have this SteamOS custom install. So we're going to go ahead and go into that folder. By default, the script is already an executable, but if for some reason it's not, you're going to type in chmod space a plus x and then paste the script name, hit enter. And at this point, before we do anything else, we want to open KDE Partition Manager and just take a look at our layout here. So I'm dual booting CachyOS here, and I want to give some space to SteamOS to be installed. And then this looks good here. I'm on my NVMe 0 N1. I'm going to right click on my BTRFS file system and go to Resize, and I'm going to give some free space after. So you'll right click on the BTRFS volume, and it should be the same under Bazite OS because it uses BTRFS for the home file system. So you'll click Resize Move, and this gives you a little widget that you can drag here. So it's a little bit finicky with my mouse, but eventually I got to this where I could drag it. And so I want to give myself about 350 gigs or close. So this would be like 340. Yeah, so 348. That's good enough, at least for demonstrating this. So now I have 348 gigs of unallocated space. I'm going to go ahead and click Apply. And this could take a couple minutes. All right, so it took 3 minutes and 13 seconds and it is done. And so now we're left with 348 gigs of unallocated space, and we're gonna leave it that way. Now this next step is critical here. We're gonna count our partition indices to know where SteamOS will start to install. And so in my case, I've got 4 partitions in total. The first 3 are for CachyOS, and we'll start our SteamOS installation on the 4th partition. The tool that we're using was originally developed for Windows, and so it defaults to index number 5 as the first partition for SteamOS. But just keep note, we're starting at 4, and so we're gonna have to count up correctly from there. So I'm gonna close out everything just so it can run smoother. At this point, we still got our terminal up and running that has our custom install script. In order to start running it, we're going to type in sudo space // and then paste the name of the script. And here we're prompted with a, hey, this is going to install SteamOS. You can either wipe your entire disk or you can manually provide partition indices. So we are going to click proceed. The device we want to install to is NVMe 01N1. Technically, if you want to try this on a USB storage device, you can plug up a second USB storage device. You can install the entire SteamOS payload to your USB storage device. That's another way you can try this without affecting your internal storage. So I'm going to click OK. This here is asking for the SSD installation suffix. It's P by default, so you can just click OK here. And now this is where we have to be exact. Do you want to wipe the entire disk? We're going to select no, and our first index is actually 4. So everything's going to be -1 in this case, because for the default installation using this script, it's assuming Windows was already installed. So we're going to hit 4. This one's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. var B is going to be 10. And then home is going to be partition index number 11. All right. And we just let it run. This takes a couple minutes. So once this completes, you'll have whatever operating system you already have installed, whether it's CachyOS or Bazite, and then you'll have SteamOS. At the end of this installation, it's going to automatically mark SteamOS as the first bootable partition. In order to switch which operating system you're booting, you'll just have to enter the BIOS and change the boot order. So the way SteamOS works, it's basically got 2 copies of the operating system, A and B. And if something happens to the first one, you can boot off the second one. At any rate, the install has completed. Go ahead and click proceed. I'm tapping delete on my keyboard so we can enter the BIOS. All right, so we can see here boot. The first thing is UEFI OS, and then you see SteamOS as the second one. All right, so it took a while of just sitting there with a black screen. Historically, I've actually seen the kernel messages as it's booting up. It took about 2 minutes sitting on a black screen, but eventually we're greeted with this, which is our SteamOS onboarding screen. So there's actually a network bug. There's a race condition in network controllers during boot up. What I find to help out here is to plug in a USB Wi-Fi dongle. Once I get past this, I can remove the dongle and just use my Ethernet. So let me plug that in. Now that it's plugged in, I'm gonna actually have to reboot. So go over here, power, restart, confirm. All right, so we're back and we're greeted with the onboarding screen. And now it detected my wired connection because I had a USB Wi-Fi controller. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit enter here. It's gonna start downloading an update. If you already have Wi-Fi installed and that's your main internet connection for your device, then you likely won't have to go through what we just went through. But there have been a lot of issues lately because Valve's been preparing for the Steam Machine and the Steam Frame, as well as onboarding the Legion Go 2 as a device that would natively support SteamOS. And so there's been a lot of dust being kicked up with these refactors and code updates. But for the most part, in our community, we found several workarounds and ways to keep pushing through it. I'm expecting after this summer and these device launches, things will stabilize. All right, so it finished and we are rebooting. And last but not least, I'm going to leave a set of commands in the description of the video for how to install the Cyan Skillfish Power Governor. And I already have a video on the channel that shows you how to configure it under CachyOS. Once it's installed in SteamOS, the configuration is exactly the same. In a future video, I'll be sharing some software tools that one of the friends of our community has been developing that automates installation of the Cyan Skillfish Power Governor. So in today's video, the commands that I'm providing in the description are a manual install process, but pretty soon it will be completely automated. Also in a follow-up video, I'll be sharing how to enable all 40 compute units. I'm still thinking about how to deploy this. I've tried using the live CU dispatcher, but it wasn't successful. If anyone out there is able to get it working under SteamOS, please share any of the details and I'll be happy to make a video on it. That way everyone in the community can take advantage of it. I've had to compile dependencies like libdrm, and it's just been a dependency rabbit hole just trying to get the live CU dispatcher working. At this point in time, I've found that it's much cleaner just to build our own kernel and install it, but I'd love to be able to use the live dispatcher. So if anyone out there gets it up and running, please let me know. All right, so after rebooting, sometimes you might get stuck at a black screen that looks like nothing's happening. And this again is with SteamOS already installed and your first boot option here in your bootloader manager. Have no fear, I've created a custom repair script. So we're gonna boot off of the SteamOS install media once again. So make sure you put that as your first option here in your numbered boot options. Hit F10, yes to continue. We're going to boot back into the SteamOS install desktop environment. We're going to open Firefox and we're going to clone my custom repair repository. All right, so we're back in the desktop environment on the SteamOS install media. I'm opening Firefox, and if you're using the same install media from the earlier step, Firefox should already be installed. All right, so we'll navigate to steamos-repair-device-custom. Like our custom SteamOS install script, this has been designed and custom tailored for dual boot systems. And so Valve does provide a repair script, but it assumes that SteamOS takes up the whole NVMe SSD and that SteamOS's EFI bootloader manager starts at partition 1. And so we're going to want to clone this tool. Open up a console. We're going to type in CD and hit enter. And now we're going to type in git clone and then paste the URL. And now I'm going to close Firefox to avoid utilizing any extra resources. And I'm going to go ahead and change over to this directory here, the SteamOS custom repair. And so it gives you the same options as the SteamOS repair script that Valve ships. So there's an option to format the entire system, which is the all flag. We are just going to want to use the already installed system to reinstall SteamOS. If it can't pass a sanity check, it'll copy everything over from the USB. So we're going to type in sudo /repair-device-custom.sh. And here we're going to type the word system at the end. This lets the repair script know that we're not trying to reformat the entire device, but only reinstall the SteamOS operating system files. So we go ahead and hit enter, and we're prompted with a similar UI here. It's asking which device to install it to. Here it's going to be NVMe 0 and 1. Click OK. Our SSD installation suffix is still P. We're going to hit OK here. Now here, SteamOS, again, let's open our KDE partition manager. SteamOS starts at partition index number 4 with this ESP partition type. So we're just going to go ahead and just take note of that. So here, instead of it being 5, it's going to be 4. And then EFI-A is going to be partition 5. And we're just going to keep counting up. 6, 7, 8. var A is 9. var B is 10. And then our home partition's 11. And it's just saying, hey, we're going to try to preserve all of the content and things that you've downloaded. Is it okay to proceed? Yes, we're going to proceed. And this should go pretty quickly because wherever possible, it's going to try to copy files. Also, what's neat about this script is if for whatever reason your SteamOS installation gets corrupted or no longer boots, you can use this script to repair it and preserve all your downloads and your and this should take about 2 or 3 minutes. All right, and at this point it is done. We're going to click proceed to reboot the device. All right, at this point my device is rebooting. So I'm entering my BIOS and I'm going to bump SteamOS to the first boot option. And then I'm going to hit F10 to save and exit. And look at that. At this point, you would just complete your onboarding like you would as if you were setting up your Steam Deck, your Steam machine, or any SteamOS compatible device. I'm going to cut right here. I'm going to get logged in and I'm going to show you around and give you a tour. As I alluded to earlier, in an upcoming video, I'll be showing how to use some tools that a friend in the community has been working on to automate installation of the Cyan Skillfish Power Governor. He also automated installation of a tool that allows dynamic CPU frequency scaling. Having those two things installed really refines your BC250 setup under SteamOS. I'll also be sharing how to enable all 40 compute units. So right now I'm still brainstorming kind of a build process for this, but ideally what I'd like is almost like a release process that periodically builds the existing Valve kernel source and creates 2 packages that we would just be able to install on our BC250 to enable all 40 compute units. Again, if anyone in the community is successful with enabling all 40 compute units using the live dispatcher tool, please let me know. Until next time, hit that like button and subscribe. That way you don't miss all the amazing tech, toys, and gaming tips we've got coming down the pipeline.